nobody stopping my shine. They try to break me, try to take me out, but I got Jesus on my side.
Everyone, this is your host, Maria Duenas with the Entrepreneur Soiree, and today we are super excited to have our beautiful and amazing friend, Edna Mendez. She is a mentor and a life coach, and I'm super excited to have you today, Edna, because I know you're going to come with a wealth of information to share with all of our viewers, and I'm going to let you take over, Edna. Please, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Maria, for having me. I'm really excited when you told me about this. I was like, let's talk, let's converse, because this is something I really love. This is my passion. So I want to spread the message as much as possible.
Absolutely. And I remember when I met you a couple months ago at Desiree's baby shower, which, by the way, now Camila just turned 1 month. So congratulations, Camila and Desiree, if you guys are watching. So I met you, and I love, meeting different women at all of these, social gatherings that I attend. And you really stood out because you and I were talking, we're conversing, getting to know each other. And I could really tell that, you were really passionate about what you do now. And I was like, she has to come on the show and at some point share her story and her journey. And just your energy was so like peaceful and soothing, where, we had kids around the table, and I even saw how you were interacting with them. So I was like, okay, she knows what she's doing. So I just want to share that with our viewers. So what were you doing before you decided to become a life coach, Edna? Tell us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually want to say a comment off that, because I felt the exact same way about you. I went home, I was talking to my partner, and I was like, this woman, she shines. She just radiates this energy that I want to be like. It was just such an inspiration seeing you. I'm being honest, like just your presence, how you carried yourself. I was like, this girl is goals. But yeah, going back to your question.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, going back to your question, what I was doing right before life coaching is actually I was working with kids with anxiety, autism, ADHD, any type of learning or social behavioral issues. And, I love that job so much. It was so fulfilling going there, coaching them, spending that one-on-one with them. But it was during COVID, like right when COVID hit, I was like, I know I could do more. I know I can expand this. Or if I had that ability to have one-on-one sessions with them, with just me and the child, I know I can help them. Because when I was very young, I knew from a young age that I wanted to work with children. I just knew I had this connection with kids. Like, I understand that some kids are often misunderstood. They just want to be heard. They just want a hug. They just want that love and guidance. And I was like, let me help you.
And you know what? That is so true, because now that I am a mom, like prior to being a mom, I really just didn't have like a connection with kids in general. And sometimes, if I'm being honest, I'm just thinking like, what is wrong with these children, right? Because you automatically think there's something wrong with them. And then as soon as I found out, I was going to become a mom myself, I was like, wait a minute, like this is a time that I need to start educating myself and learning from other people and experts to like, how am I going to go about situations when they are having those meltdowns where they are literally falling apart? And I'm thinking like, is there anything wrong with this child? Right. But I had to learn and teach myself like, girl, there's nothing wrong with that kid. He is just expressing himself or herself, in my case, my boys, but it definitely takes a lot of training, and it takes a lot of patience. Okay, to be able to deal with these type of characters. And the fact that we have amazing people such as yourself to be able to help, could only be, powerful. And you are used as a learning tool to teach parents like us or other people in general. Truth be told, kids are not the only ones that go through anxiety nowadays. You and I were having that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to what you were saying, like we want a lot of the times we think it's the kids. We want to blame the kids. It's the kids. But what are you doing to help that child? Like as a parent, like how are you de-escalating the situation? How are you helping them manage or navigate tantrums? Like, are you talking to them or you just want them to shut up? Like, what do you want to do? So it's really understanding the child and their child's needs. What do they need in that moment? You know?
Exactly. And you know what? I feel you touched on a very powerful point when you say, like, what is the situation? You know, like, what are you doing as a parent, and blaming? Because I've caught myself, like, at times, and I say catch myself because I'm like, wait a minute, Maria, like, that's not his fault. And I always, and I'm very vocal and verbal about it when we're going through a situation with my older son. And I'm like, wait a minute, I have to kind of like take 2 steps back and even talk to him and say, you know what, that was not your fault. Actually, that was my fault for not learning how to communicate with you, or not understanding like where you're coming from, or the feelings that are going inside your body at the moment. So I do acknowledge that. And I apologize, because I'm like, none of this is your fault. Actually, it's my fault for not understanding, how to deal with your situation.
Yeah, and that's such a great approach. You're teaching them so much valuable lesson in that short example, like so much. You're teaching them calmness, not to be reactive. There's a different way of approaching a stressful situation. You're doing so much for that child.
Yeah. And that's kind of like the goal in general. I'm sure like all parents could agree, because I mean, truth be told, we can read so many books on how to become the best parent, how to, de-escalate tantrums, or what to do, top 10 things to do when your kid's falling apart. But you really can't put all those, rules and suggestions to play, because every kid is different. I mean, that's kind of like the general rule, kind of like a starting point, but every situation is going to be different, and you're just going to have to kind of learn as you go.
Absolutely.
In my personal opinion,
And you said something very interesting. You said about patience, and that is key. That's the cool thing about having children or working with children. You get to really learn about your patience, learn to teach them about patience. And a lot of the times we think we have patience, but when you have a child yelling at you at the top of their lungs for like an hour straight, that's when you learn, like, okay, now I have to learn patience, And it helps
patience
them.
or just and maybe sometimes all it takes is from you to remove yourself from the environment, and then just kind of like take a little breather, and then come back and say, okay, let's try this again.
Amen. Yes.
Because truth be told, like I was telling you earlier, I'm just like, I'm going to go upstairs to the second floor, take a few minutes, and then I'll come right back, guys. So just give me a few minutes.
And that's wonderful. You're setting a great example like that.
Girl, I'm trying. So by no means I'm a perfect mom. I'm the first one to admit, but you know what? God knows that I try, and at least I'm being intentional, and I have no problem admitting, like, you know what? That wasn't cool what mom just did or said, or how I behaved in, certain situations. And I always like to come back and address that. Like, you remember what mom just did right now, like 3 minutes ago? Yeah, that wasn't cool. That's not acceptable. And mom needs to try a little bit harder. So I'm okay with that. And that's part of, learning as we go when you become parents. So that's awesome. So tell me, because I know yesterday you were teaching some young boys about meditation, and I'm going to assume, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure it was more of, in the Latino community. I'm sure these kids that are probably not being exposed to like meditation, who meditates, right? And especially if these are teenage boys. So tell me a little bit more about that experience.
Oh my God, it was such a great experience. I was telling my partner about it. I got home and I was like, I can't wait to tell you, because like you said, this isn't taught at home. And when you come from a very traditional Hispanic background, which most of these boys do, they see that as weakness. They see that as a feminine thing. They're like, they use very vulgar words to describe it. But when they were talking about it, they saw it in a very negative light. And I was just there to educate them, to help them realize, like, hold on, it's not a feminine thing. It's not this and that. It actually helps you with anxiety. And when we use keywords like that, another boy started saying, hey, my parent has anxiety. Maybe this will help them. And it just turned to the snowball effect of just communicating, being open. And there was a few students who were disruptive. And this is what I love about meditation, is when you practice it on a daily basis, you have the power to calm yourself. Because I'm not going to lie to you, there was one student in particular who was being very disruptive, very disruptive, while the other boys were trying. And so once the meditation finished, I calmly approached it, and I was a little angry, a lot angry at him, not going to lie. But I was just breathing through it. And I talked to him like this: hey, tell me what's going on. Tell me, what did this make you uncomfortable? Were you not feeling it? And just calmly approaching a situation. And that's how I feel most kids need to be talked to. You don't need to yell. You need to scream. You don't need to do all that. Just calmly approach it and go, hey, let's talk. What did you not like about this? What did you like about it? What can we change next time? And that's exactly how I approached it. And it turned out really well at the end.
Exactly. Because like you said, there could be some triggering factors that we don't know what that environment at home looks like. And a lot of the times, truth be told, it's never like a real healthy one, especially because this is not what they're practicing at home. And it's not even like the parents' fault, to be quite honest, because when you're not educated and you don't know that these are some resources or different methods that you can learn to apply in your day-to-day life, then it's kind of like a disadvantage for everyone. And that's where people like you come in, because you're like, hey, listen, I'm here to educate you, and you're starting in the right place because you're at the school. The kids are going to take this information home, and hopefully some of these kids were able to trigger something inside their parents' head to say, wait a minute, like, what do you mean meditation? Like, isn't this where you kind of have to go like to a special place or at a gym? This only happens at a gym, not knowing that these are things that they can actually do at home, by simply probably going onto a YouTube channel and, putting meditation in the background and learning the process. But at least you already planted the seed in some of these kids.
Yes, exactly. And this is what I tell all the students. Your parents are doing the best they can with the resources they have. And they're not bad people. They're just trying with what they know. And I'm like, think about your grandparents. Those are the people who raised your parents. And there are other ways to manage. There are other ways to handle situations. And meditation helps you ground yourself. It helps you when you're having moments of chaos and all this craziness. It just calms you and grounds you. And wouldn't you like to be that person who approaches situation more calmly than belligerent? And they're like, yeah.
No, absolutely. And I always, like to take personal situations, because even like as an adult, there were times where I would feel like frustrated. And this was probably before I even had kids, right? Because you're thinking, man, like my mom never did that, or my dad never did that, or they never told me this, right? And then it wasn't until I became like an actual adult, just like recently in the last 5 years, I would say, where I actually understood that, you know what, Maria, your mom and dad, as bad as they may have done with you or not, or whatever they didn't do, like they did the best they could with the tools that were given to them. And we have to, take into consideration, like you said, who raised them? How were they raised? Like, I mean, on my mom's side, my grandmother, I mean, she had a lot of children. She didn't have time to be disciplining, meditation, girl, they probably had the chocolate thrown at them.
That's what I'm saying.
That was probably like how they were raised. And then like our parents kind of try to modify that and probably took some stuff that they liked or didn't like. But then at the end of the day, I'm grateful, because then I didn't turn out so bad at the end of the day. Like I could have been like pregnant at 16, or I could have been a gang member because I was literally living in a neighborhood where that was the thing. You were, either a gang member selling drugs or probably killed by now. But it's just like, if in their way of parenting, as harsh as I may have taken it, it didn't turn out so bad after all, because here I am.
I love that you said that. Yeah. And I myself, I don't blame my parents. And it took me a very long time to actually realize that and actually accept that, because it's one thing hearing it, and then one thing actually accepting that, hey, my parents did try. And you let go of the anger, you let go of the resentment, you let go of all of that. And you just say, I forgive you. I forgive myself. You tried. I tried. Now, how can we move forward? Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's kind of like the whole point, just in life in general, and to be able to like let go of those, challenging moments that we kind of hold close to our heart. And we're like, well, we're never going to forgive that person or whatever for whatever they did to us. But it's learning, like you said, to let go and do it genuinely, like from the bottom of your heart, where you can look at that person and not feel like any anger or any negative energy towards them, then you're definitely going in the right direction. So what would you say have been some challenging moments, whether it's with one of your clients or just in general, that you feel like, oh my goodness, like, how am I going to get through this? And you got through it.
In terms of like my entrepreneur journey, or in terms of like my life journey?
Entrepreneurial journey in general, but to let us know how you got to this point. Yes.
Oh my goodness. It's been a journey, Maria. Like, I'm sure yours as well. Like, it's been since I was a child. Like I told you, I grew up very machista culture, the heavily dominant machista. So it was, women weren't really allowed to get educated. So I went ahead and got myself educated. Women weren't allowed to vocalize their stories, talk about their stories. So I went ahead and did that. I challenged myself, and that's what I do. I do that a lot. I challenge myself, even if it's making me uncomfortable. I started saying yes to opportunities, even though I was secretly having anxiety, or even though I was secretly like freaking out. I was like, you need to step out of your comfort zone. You need to do things, because like I told you last time, I don't want to tell my clients or the kids I'm mentoring advice if I can't take my own advice. So I make sure to implement, okay, Edna, do it, even if it makes you uncomfortable. And I've learned to really set boundaries with my family, with clients, with people in general. And that has really transformed my life, those boundaries. It's as simple as saying no, but that no takes you a long way, right? And so what I do is I just really challenge myself constantly just to grow.
And, it's so true, because the more and more that I listen to, other coaches and even my personal coaches, right? And the power of saying no, we always think like, I don't want to tell her no, because, we're always thinking like, what if we hurt that other person, or, that person really does need help. But truth be told, for my mental sanity, I'm going to have to pass on this one, or I'm just going to have to say, I'm not available at the moment. And that's something that, like you said, in our culture, we're not known for that. We're known to be like the lifesavers. We're there for everyone and anyone at any time of the day, 24/7. And not realizing that actually drains you, not only mentally, physically, and you can't even show up for yourself at the end of the day. You're showing up for everyone else. And what about you? Like, where are you leaving yourself in all of this? So the fact that you have learned to say no, and in a very polite way, doesn't mean like, oh, I don't love you, doesn't mean I don't want you in my life. It just means I can't, because otherwise then I'm jeopardizing my well-being. And at some point you have to learn to put yourself first.
Absolutely. And to go to comment off that is, we've learned, especially for Latina women, to be in the people pleaser mode. We've learned to please people, constantly put everyone ahead of ourselves. And we get so burned out because we're busy taking care of everybody else. We don't take care of ourselves. We don't take care of our needs. And then we just end up exhausted. So when I started putting those boundaries, at first my parents were like, oh, she's too good. She thinks she's this and that. But over time,
they're like, mira la perfecta. Mira la perfecta.
Yes, exactly. There was so many comments, so many mean comments thrown at me. It wasn't nice, but because of those boundaries, my parents and I have a really great relationship right now. The boundaries help so much. Now my mom doesn't try to over control. She doesn't try to, do the old thing she used to do. She respects my time now. She checks in and say, okay, you're not available. I completely understand. Talk another day. And that's the power of setting those boundaries. That's the power of you saying, hold on, I need to do something with my life. And I need to start putting limits with people. Absolutely.
Yeah. And at the same time, you're also educating your parents. We didn't teach you, we're always here for you. If you call us, we're going to be there. Right. And I always and I'll tell you this because this is what I tell my mom. Yeah. But you're the mom. I'm not your mom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So And it's different and it can be uncomfortable because again, this is not what our parents were used to or being brought up. So the fact that you're actually teaching them in the most polite and loving way to say, hey, listen, like I need my space, this is how we're going to go about it. Or no, you can't just come over without letting me know if it's okay if you come. And I mean, I've even had to implement those, and not because I don't want to spend time with my family or not because they're not special or important. I mean, they're my parents and I love them, but just having to say like, hey, is it okay if we come over? Oh, cool. Yeah, no problem. Or, not today, maybe, or in a couple of hours, you guys can swing by. But it's just being able to have those conversations at a different level. I feel, you're definitely in a more mature place than you probably were when, before you even came a life coach.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And something to comment off that is that a lot of the times people confuse kindness with weakness. Oh, she's kind. Why doesn't she just react? No, because there is a way to respond. Because there's react and respond. You react, you are loud, you're just reacting to the situation. Where you respond, you can calmly collect your thoughts and articulate yourself where you don't have to react, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's strength. That's not weakness.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes not responding at all also takes a lot of courage because truth be told, sometimes we do have to hold our thoughts and just be like, well, where is what I'm about to say or what I want to say going to take this conversation to, right? So then you're just better off I'm going to choose to not engage in the conversation or in the argument. I'm going to let you decide or think whatever you want. And then I'm just going to leave it at that. Because that also takes a lot of courage.
Yes. And what I notice a lot in a lot of people is they want to respond because at the end of the day, the deep rooted thing is that they want their parents' approval. They want them to agree with them. And it's like, you don't need their parents' approval anymore. You're an adult. You can manage it on your own,
But truth be told, in my personal case, yes, we are always seeking for our parents to approve. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because as your mind starts changing and as you start doing other things, it's like your parents are not going to approve of everything, just like they wouldn't approve for you to get a piercing in your tongue when you were 15. Obviously, I'm not going to be like, hey, mom, look at me now. But I'm just saying, just like even how you're raising your kids or what you're feeding them or what school are they going to or, who are you listening to? Did your religion change? Who are you looking up to now? And it's just, again, it all boils down to educating them. I always tell my parents, I'm like, listen, this is what I believe. This is how I'm going to do things. It doesn't mean you have to agree because you don't, but you do have to respect the decisions I'm going to make. You don't have to agree 100%. And yes, you're entitled to let me know, what you think, but that doesn't mean I'm going to run with it and take it, or I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing because at the end of the day, I'm trying to improve my life versus, go back in time. I'm trying to move forward here.
Yes. And that's so great the way you handle that. It's like you said, it's teaching them, it's educating them. Hey, there's another way to approach situations.
Exactly. So I mean, and me personally, right? So we all know we're going through a lot of difficult times, even though we are, I want to say technically over the pandemic. Just depends who you ask, but there's still stressful situations happening, even just with the economy nowadays and people still losing jobs, not being fully employed or not being able to get back on your feet after what we just went through, the past 2.5 years. And we have to agree that the anxiety level in a lot of people is just like on the rise. So what would you say are like 3 simple, quick tips that if I feel like, oh my goodness, I'm going into a panic mode, anxiety attack, that we can calm ourselves down and we can do it within ourselves?
I love this question because I myself have a lot of anxiety. So I'm like, how can I learn to calm my anxiety? And this is what I suggest. Stop and pause everything you're doing because your mind is going 100 miles per hour. So stop, take a second, breathe in, breathe out, Become aware of your five senses. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? Right? Become aware of your senses and then really take that second to ground yourself before moving forward. You don't want to take action consistently like, oh my God, go, because your anxiety is going to get worse. But let's say you're in a situation where you can't pause what you're doing, like you're driving, right? I want you to focus on your breath. Focus on how you're breathing, because the chances are you're not breathing correct. You're probably holding your breath. So really just focus. Am I breathing? Let me breathe. And also, hearing calm music helps. Let's say you're driving, because I have a lot of anxiety when I drive. So I make sure I have a set of playlists that's really calm. And when I do have the anxiety when I'm driving, I just start breathing. Breathe, breathe, breathe. It's such a simple yet powerful technique that really helps your anxiety ease.
Nice. And I definitely have to agree with you, because I would have to admit I'm probably like the worst driver out there. Okay. Truth be told, but no, seriously, you know what? My husband always laughs at me. He's like, you drive like a grandma. I'm like, shut up. I'm trying to get to places here. Okay. In one piece. But truth be told, before I've learned and I've managed, just like you said, like the breathing techniques and things like that. But I used to have really bad anxiety just even going on the freeway. So when like years ago, we got into a really bad car accident where I didn't even know how we survived, but literally it was my mom's car got slammed on the freeway, like to the other side. We ended up like hitting the center divider wall. And it was just like very traumatizing for me. So till this day, I can't even find myself driving in the carpool lane myself. Okay. Cause I'm just like, I'm going to hit the wall, because that it automatically takes me back. But I've gotten better at driving on the freeway without having to think about it and being anxious. But breathing, you know, and even if I was driving like next to a trailer or whatever, like my anxiety level would start rising. And it was just like learning how to breathe and just like, okay, focus, it's going to be okay. And that technique in itself has helped me tremendously more. Now I don't even think about it. It just happens naturally and I'm like able to focus, but I still can't drive on that damn carpool lane to save my life. And my mom or whoever's in the car with me, they're like, you know, we could get there much faster if you go. I'm not driving in there. And I always tell them, do not tell me, I'll drop you off right here.
Amen. Yeah. And oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing that. That was awesome for you to share that. That was so nice of you, because I feel like a lot of us relate to that. I'm going to be honest too. Look, I had a lot of road rage. I did. I grew up in a family who was very impatient, like just tailgated people. And I'm going to be honest, I did it too. And it's such an ugly behavior now that I can take a step back and look at it. But because I didn't realize, like, there are people who are driving who probably have severe anxiety and they drive slower because it helps them. I know I do. And because I had road rage, it was just getting really bad. And then I also had an accident that really changed my life, that made me go, okay, I cannot drive like this anymore. I need to be more calm. I have to be more understanding. Now I don't do it. And it's because of my anxiety. And it really just helps with that mindfulness. How can I ease my anxiety? How can I, because you don't want to give up driving. And that's what happens with anxiety. Sometimes people avoid to avoid a panic attack. And I understand that, but the more you avoid, the bigger the fear gets. And then you see a few years later, you're not doing the activity because of the fear, of the anxiety, right? So it's just learning how to calm your body, take a deep breath, relax, and you'll be okay, you know?
Exactly. And like you mentioned, like fear will literally like paralyze you.
Yeah.
And that's why you just can't let it take over, because you have to be able to, I always say, acknowledge it, know that it's there, but don't give it, you know, the attention or think about it too much, because then it starts coming to life, in my opinion. You know? Like, I'm like, yes, when I talk to myself, that doesn't make me feel so comfortable, or I'm afraid, and it's okay. Let's acknowledge it, but you're not going to hold me back. I'm going to still go for it. Even if I fail, I'm still going to try it. And then I'm going to try to get better at it, and then just move on and get over it. That's kind of the way I've been able to manage a lot of things, because I mean, you will just sit there and life will pass you by and you didn't do nothing because you were just afraid of whatever it is, failing, getting into a car accident. I mean, everyone has a different situation, but truth be told.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So tell us, what are you doing? I mean, I know you're a life coach and a mentor, but what are your plans for the future? Like, where do you see yourself this career taking you?
Oh man, that's such a good question because I'm starting to really, really enjoy every day waking up excited. So, what I started doing is I decided to break up my services in three ways. One for adults who are trying to break those toxic cycles and really heal and fall back in love with themselves. Two, I do services for children. They want to build their confidence, their self esteem. They want to make friends. They want to know how to socialize. That's where I come in. Or three, I work with teachers slash students. I go to classrooms. I give like seminars. We have a group discussion. We do Q&A, and it's just a beautiful bonding moment. And I've done all three, and all three are so fulfilling. And so I decided to partner with a nutritionist, and we're doing a future project for life coaching and nutrition for children. So it's been a lot of projects in the works. Those three services I do are my passion, but this new nutrition and life coach is going to be my passion as well, because there's so many kids who can benefit from it, because your gut is your second brain. So if you can teach children how to rewire not only their brains, but how to handle, manage situations, stressful situations, how to be kind, how to have gratitude. What does that look like? All of those things can really help them reach their full potential, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I love the last one where you combine the nutrition into this service because, and especially with the younger kids or the kids that, that are going to school, because again, we don't know what every kid is going through at home. And truth be told, at times, they don't have the proper meal. They don't have 3 meals a day. So some of these kids may be starving, and it'd be nice for them to have the tools to see like, well, even if I don't have this at home, maybe I can still, make it work with whatever, is being provided at school, or just prepare themselves better, because a lot of the times, they're having chips for breakfast, and we all know that that's not going to be a good way to get your day started. I mean, it's fine every now and then, because I'm going to raise my hand because my kids have had candy for breakfast, chips for breakfast. I mean, don't tell my parents, right? Because they're going to be like, of course you would give them that. But that's not their daily routine. You know what I mean? Because we want to make sure they are able to have a nice, healthy breakfast that'll kind of fuel them for the rest of the day. And it does come in combination, because I mean, even for us as adults, it doesn't mean like not only for children, but if you have like crappy food or like junk food, it automatically makes you feel like you don't want to do anything. You're like grumpy. You don't have a good attitude. You're already feeling sick inside your stomach. And then it's kind of like, yeah, let's just give up for the day.
Yes, it's so true. Like think about when you eat a big fast food meal, you feel lethargic afterwards, you feel tired, you just want to go to sleep. And imagine we feed our kids that. And it's okay, like you said, once in a while, there's no problem. Moderation's fine.
Exactly.
But if they're eating this consistently, it does affect them, So you want, and something you also said that was really amazing is routine. You want to start adding and implementing routines with children so they can learn that they can have structure, organization. And so when they're adults, they're like, oh, I already know what a morning routine looks like. I already know how to set up a schedule. And that's setting them up for success.
Yes, and that is also a very good point. I'm like I said, I just keep referencing back to myself, because I always feel like I can only talk about myself. I have no right to judge anyone else. So, but in my opinion, like when I first became a mom, and even till today, like I'm not huge on like we wake up, at 7 o'clock, and then we're gonna the first 5 minutes, no. But it's like learning to also be flexible, but also let them know like, hey, listen, these are like life structures that we are going to need to have in life to survive, but also not taking it to the extreme. It just, in my opinion, because we can't live off of a structure and a routine and every day, because we all know that outside of the door of our home, life is just a freaking circus. So they're not going to be able to be like, well, it's time to, or, every 4 hours this, or, whatever. but it's also allowing them to have that flexibility and make that judgment call on their own to decide, okay, outside, like now it's time to do this, versus like, oh my gosh, if I don't do this exactly the way we do it every morning, then their life will also fall apart.
Yeah, yeah. You make a great point. A routine example I want to give is like starting the day with your children with meditation or mindfulness, and then letting them brush their teeth and something small like that, or even in the night, because I know it can get really chaotic with everyone's schedule. You're like, oh my God, I'm running around like this. Just having that dinner together, cooking the meal together, and then going around talking about what you're grateful for the day. Right? That's a routine you can add that would really help them. Like that small gesture can go a long way.
You know what? And it's so true because I see it personally, like even when it's dinner time or we're prepping to, so whatever activity we're going to do, but we always like to include the kids, even though I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. Well, the little guy really isn't too hands on, but the 3-year-old is always like, oh, volunteering, I'll wash the dishes or I'll cut, whatever. Obviously everything is supervised, but it makes you feel like you're part of something. And if we're cooking dinner and when it's time to serve, we're grateful for this meal that we cooked with so much love and we get to enjoy it together. And it really does change the dynamic and the environment of your home. And it just feels much more healthier, and where you're able to create a safe space for them to be able to express themselves. I mean, it's crazy, even though these little, humans they're small, but they have a lot going on in their imagination. And just hearing them talk, it's like, wow, like they're going places and I'm not trying to stop them.
Amen. Yes. Yes. Let the kids express themselves, their creativity, their passion. And that is setting them up for so much success, where they feel like they're in an environment where they can truly be themselves, where they don't have to hide things from you. They can just say, hey, Mom, can we talk about something? Because you've given them that space to open up to you,
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, I am just like besides myself with all the information you had given us, and just like and I always tell people, sometimes these are not things you've heard. I mean, you've heard these things before. It's not like you've never heard them. And as simple as they may sound, like that's what it is. I mean, they were. Because sometimes we're thinking, oh my gosh, she's going to give us, 3 amazing tips that no one has ever shared with us before. Mm-hmm. But it's just like really understanding that that's all it really takes. But are we willing to do it like genuinely from the bottom of our heart or from our gut or whatever you want to call it? It's just like, are you really understanding the concept? Like, are you really engaged? Because I can tell you've heard breathe in and breathe out, breathe in and breathe out. And you try it 3 times, you're like, it's not working. I'm just getting worked up even more, but that's because you're not, tuned in. You're not engaged. Your mind is really all over the place. But thank you so much for reminding us, for sharing these, techniques with us, and just allowing us to share your journey, because you're definitely going to impact a lot of lives. And I know that because even when I was working in like a high school setting and things like that, I know these kids are hurting, and maybe not all, because, there are some kids that do have a good, healthy home environment, but for the ones that don't have that, it's just like, you're like their little light in their life, and you're letting them know that there's other possibilities for them, even if at the moment it doesn't look the way they want it to look. And it's kind of like mentally you can escape that, and then understand that things will get better eventually, and pray for them, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I love that. I love that summary. Exactly. And, it's so important for not only the students, but the parents as well. Cause you were saying how if the parents, if they learn how to meditate as well, and at first it can be a little difficult, they can teach their child, hey, you know what? This is hard for me, but I'm not giving up. They're teaching their child how to be resilient in that moment,
On that note, have you considered, because we already know you're in the schools, but have you considered maybe inviting the parents?
I haven't. That's something I would love to actually do. That would be a great thing to do, actually.
And just because you're touching, right? So when you have the kids go home and thinking like, oh, Ms. Mendez came over and she taught us this today, or we talked about it. But if the parents aren't really tuned in or really don't know what meditation is, just because of this is a topic we're on or whatever it is that you're teaching them, it'd be nice if you could do like any, after hours and just say like all parents are welcome, and have something. So guess what? You're not only teaching the parent, you're teaching the child, and then they can work together.
Absolutely. And actually, I am doing that for the nutrition and the life coaching one. That's when we're going to have the weekly meeting with the parents and talk to them and tell them, hey, here's the update, because it's so important that the parents get involved too.
Yes. Yes, and that way they're more accepting, and they don't, because truth be told, when your kid teaches you something that you didn't know, you're probably like you're not going to be so open to it or thinking like, what is my kid trying to teach me, right? Just because you're the adult and they're the child. But if they feel like they're involved, then everyone's going to benefit from it.
Yes, absolutely. True.
I love it. So where can our viewers find more about you in case anyone's interested in your services? Let us know your social media sites.
Perfect. It's at coach.ed.la. And my website's lifecoachingwithed.com. That's where you can find me.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Edna. Really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for taking the time this morning. And I wish you all the best in your journey.
Thank you so much. This was a great honor and such a pleasure. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a great day.